So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Star Wars. So let's start the series. Jizka, Master. Yes, it would appear so, Qui-Gon Jinn remarked. The Jedi Master and his Padawan had just been assigned the responsibility of serving as ambassadors to the Supreme Chancellor and looking into the Trade Federation's blockade of the planet Naboo, so it would be an understatement to say that they were upset. He had hoped to arrive in a few days, but it now appeared that it would take much longer. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi, his Padawan, were standing in the diplomatic ship's cargo hold as it sped through hyperspace in the direction of Naboo. Qui-Gon turned to face the crewmen behind him and counted at least 36 of the small bipedal reptiles as they hopped along, determined to cause some sort of disturbance. Although the Jizka were not as big of a nuisance as they had been during the Old Republic, they could still be dangerous to any ship that came into contact with them. "Do we know the extent of the damage?" he said quietly. In his uniform, the crewman identified himself as an engineer. "Unknown, sir. We have only recently discovered them. There's no telling how much damage they could have done since we left Coruscant," he said. The ground beneath their feet started to tremble as though to support the man's statements. Obi-Wan muttered, "I have a bad feeling about this, Master," from behind him. Qui-Gon was forced to concur with this Padawan for the first time. He sensed that something was amiss. It was in the Force. What bothered him the most was that he had never experienced such a feeling before. Normally, the Force would give some kind of warning, a clear sense that something negative was going to happen. Even though the ship was shaking more and more, the Force felt oddly at ease and completely aware of what was happening. The Jedi Master seemed to be receiving a message from the Force to accept whatever was going to happen. When the comm link on his belt started beeping loudly, Qui-Gon hurriedly turned it on and connected with the pilot of the spacecraft. "Sir, we are getting reading of very dangerous fluctuations in the hyperdrive systems." Overhearing the exchange, the engineer murmured, "Damn. We need to leave hyperspace and power down now," he continued, implying that the hyperdrive's power connections had been chewed through by these horrible pests. Uncertain if he wanted to know the answer to his own question, Obi-Wan asked, "And if we don't?" Boom, the engineer deadpanned. "Pilot, we need to drop out of hyperspace immediately to effect repairs," instructed Qui-Gon. He responded in silence for a short while before the light began to shake violently. The primary illumination failed, and the cargo hold was illuminated by emergency lights that were deep red. The pilot's jumbled reply was, "Master Jedi, sir. The navigational computer is going haywire. It's reprogrammed itself for one last jump before our power shuts down, with unknown coordinates." Qui-Gon groaned. If he could avoid it, he definitely didn't want to make an unidentified hyperspace leap because they usually ended horribly. With hope, he inquired, "Is there any way that we can cut the ship's power before that happens?" "No, sir. The last power surge overloaded the hyperdrive. For the time being it is a self-sustaining power source. If we don't make the jump that energy will go critical. We won't survive the explosion," the pilot calmly replied. Qui-Gon briefly recalled the force he had experienced seconds before. The remembrance strengthened his resolve, and he realized he would have to face the repercussions of his next words. He concluded by saying, "So be it. Send out a final warning for all crew to stow themselves safely, and then make the jump. May the Force be with us," before escorting his Padawan and the other members of the engineering team to a safe location to withstand the expected storm. As he strolled down one of the main streets in Hidden Leaf Village, Naruto Uzumaki was making every effort to enjoy the evening while taking in all of the vibrant and colorful shops. For the 5-year-old blonde, this was just another night. The adults' icy stares of contempt and the way the civilians treated him as though he didn't exist made him swear at times that he could truly feel every bad emotion they threw at him. Shopkeepers would ignore him until he left their establishments, and parents would shoo their kids out of his way. Early on, Naruto discovered that he could only summon 3 of his buddies of the same age, Kiba Inuzuka, Choji Akamichi, and Shikamaru Nara. Naruto had even heard their parents urging their boys to make friends with him and to ignore all the negative things they had been taught about the good-hearted youngster, suggesting that their parents didn't share their sentiments. To Iruka-sensei's chagrin, the 4 of them had gotten into a lot of trouble in the year since they started attending the academy. A familiar, heavenly aroma drifted towards Naruto, who was grinning at the recollections. As he got closer to his target, he started running, his stomach groaning in protest. He scampered up onto a high stool after ducking beneath a white dividing drape as he turned the corner at breakneck speed. He shouted, "Oi, old man! I'm here, so you better get cooking. Naruto heard a man start to laugh from behind the counter. With a broad smile on his face, Toichi Ichiraku emerged from the rear of his ramen stall and remarked, "Ah, Naruto, my boy, you're early tonight. The usual, I suppose." He was sitting at the counter, looking forward to his daily lunch. Naruto retorted, "You bet. 3 miso ramen, please." Since Ichiraku Ramen was one of the few establishments in Konoha that would serve Naruto, the little stand swiftly became into a daily hangout for the young child. The boy was always treated as such by Toichi and his daughter Ayame. Something was calling to Naruto as he waited for his supper with considerable patience. It was a ghostly sensation that nudged at the limits of his senses. Dropping from his stool, he turned and used his hand to open the curtain so he could see the night sky. For a second, he believed he saw a small black form pass in front of the moon before it vanished back into the surrounding ocean of black. Naruto knew that whatever it was that was beckoning to him existed up there someplace, despite how weird it seemed to his impressionable mind. He fixed his gaze, and it took him a few seconds to notice anything. Their exclamation marks something's faint form was visible to him as it moved between the stars. When Naruto suddenly realized that it was approaching and that its form was only a dull black outline, he felt a peculiar sense of excitement. Despite this, he refused to take his eyes off the object. Naruto was fascinated as it sailed over the Hokage monument silently and appeared to sink below the tree line on the plateau above it, growing in size every second as he watched it approach. The logical side of his young brain advised him to rush and inform the old Hokage immediately, since he should be afraid of whatever it was. However, Naruto was never considered rational. He yelled, "Hey old man," turning to face Toichi, who was busy making his lunch. "Keep it warm for me. I'll be back as soon as I can," he said. The ramen chef barely had time to think of a response before the child vanished from view. Naruto sprinted as quickly as he could, certain that he would arrive first even though he had no idea if anybody else had noticed what he had. With his immature legs not yet prepared to carry him over rooftops, he bounded past people on the streets, ignoring their irate cries of outrage. Naruto had arrived at the base of the Hokage monument after a few minutes of arduous running, and he quickly located the stairs that would lead him to the summit and his reward. As Qui-Gon gazed out of the bride's viewport, the entire spacecraft trembled around him, leaving just the clear image of hyperspace. Qui-Gon had made it to the bridge in time for their spontaneous leap into hyperspace. The pilot sitting in front of Qui-Gon said, "Sir, we are about to drop out of hyperspace. This might be a little rough," to which Qui-Gon could only nod. This was the pilot's specialty, not his. The ship moaned in protest as it started to slow down quickly, the everlasting darkness of regular space replacing the streaking vista of hyperspace. The flight crew got right to work performing the dozens of diagnostics that had to be performed before the repair task was even considered. Qui-Gon looked out the main viewport of the bridge. Their systems were damaged, so they would need to find a safe place to land and fix them. "Not as severe as they could have been, sir. It will only take us a day at most to finish up with the repairs, though we will have to find somewhere to land in the meantime," he added with a sigh of relief. A teenage crewman spoke up at the captain's statements since their mission was crucial and they could not afford any expensive delays. The seasoned Jedi became intrigued when he heard, "Sir, sensors are picking up a small planetary body close by. Initial scans indicate a breathable atmosphere." He asked, "Where are we exactly?" They were fortunate to be alive at all. According to statistics, a jump to hyperspace without pre-programmed coordinates was suicidal. It was not even remotely safe because of the extremely high odds of getting blasted to atoms in an asteroid field or flying into the center of a star. Currently unknown, Master Jedi. It will take the Navi computer a while to calculate exactly where we are. The captain nodded in agreement when Qui-Gon added, "Then it looks like we don't have a choice, Captain. We must set a course for the nearby planet." The trip to the unidentified planet was brief. In just 30 minutes, the diplomatic cruiser was in high orbits. In order to identify which planet they were sitting over, Qui-Gon tried to find any distinctive features, but he was unable. The captain questioned, "What planet am I looking at?" It was a legitimate query because, in the absence of navigational data, it might have been any of the millions of planets in known space. Unknown, sir," a crewman said. "What do you mean unknown? The planet should be in the ship's database. The only way it wouldn't be was if," replied the captain. Qui-Gon concluded by saying, "Would be if this planet had never been discovered until now," allowing his realization to linger in the air for a short while. Qui-Gon was starting to feel nervous. Captain, open up all scanners to maximum. Search for any signs of life or transmissions of any kind, he said. There was only one possible explanation if the planet they were orbiting was not listed in the galactic database. They were the first to discover it. If the scan findings showed what Qui-Gon was fairly certain they would, it would indicate a very complex first contact situation. The Force wanted him to descend to the planet's surface because he sensed something there, and the more he extended his senses, the more certain he felt. Master Jedi, initial scans show large but sporadic groupings of life forms on the planet's largest continent. We are also picking up extremely faint radio signals, but they are far too primitive for our sensors to interpret, stated the crew member. That could only indicate that the planet's population was rudimentary, perhaps not even into their industrial age, which was definitely not what Qui-Gon had intended to hear. When Qui-Gon felt it, he was just a few silent moments away from telling the captain to head for the planet's tiny moon. Someone or something down there had seen them. No, saw him. In silent disbelief, he said to himself, this did not happen by chance. Clearly perplexed, the captain said, I'm sorry, sir. Sitting cross-legged on the chilly Durasteel floor, Qui-Gon murmured, I need a moment, Captain. I will give you landing coordinates as soon as I am able. He started to broaden his senses using a simple Jedi meditation method in an attempt to identify whatever it was he was sensing on the planet's surface. The Jedi Master stood and gestured toward one of the greater concentrations of life signs on the bridge's primary holo display after a few minutes had elapsed before he opened his eyes once more. Captain, please bring us closer to this settlement and turn off all outside lights. We need to be as covert as possible. After giving a nod, the captain started directing his crew. Qui-Gon observed the little ball becoming closer and closer. By chance, they were heading to the night side of the planet, which would allow them to land covertly. At least that was the plan. The lights of the metropolis they were approaching could be seen as they broke through the atmosphere, and the Jedi realized it was far bigger than he had initially believed. With hundreds of lights softly illuminating the surroundings, it was evident that whatever species inhabited this planet had successfully harnessed energy. The city itself was surrounded by a huge wall with only one clear entrance, a huge set of what appeared to be wooden gates. The stone monument at the other end of the city, however, was the most striking sight. As they got closer, Qui-Gon saw that the four enormous stone faces that had been carved into the rock were remarkably human. They appeared to be kind gods keeping watch over their subjects. His initial conclusions were promptly altered. It was more probable that they were former municipal officials. On the mountaintop behind the city, Qui-Gon saw a vast area of dense forest. There was also a clearing that was nearly big enough to hold their ship until the repairs were completed and the Jedi Master had completed whatever task the Force had assigned him on the planet. He pointed to the clearing he had found and said, "Take us down there, Captain. As soon as you can, as quietly as you can. It would be good for us if the locals didn't know we were here." Qui-Gon felt something pressing at the limits of his senses once more. It appeared that someone had spotted him, and he would be lying if he claimed he wasn't at least somewhat curious to find out who or what it was. Since the universe was vast and the Dathomiri witches were a prime example of someone who could use the Force, he had a suspicion that it must be some sort of primitive Force practitioner. When the spacecraft eventually touched down, it came to a gentle stop a few minutes later. Qui-Gon got up and started to leave the bridge. "Please inform the crew that no one is to leave the ship. It could be very dangerous outside. I will attempt to make formal contact with the local populace under the guise of a traveler. In the meantime, please expedite all repair efforts. We still need to get to Naboo after all," he stated, without waiting for an answer. The young man looked up at his master's approach as Qui-Gon made his way through the ship to where he knew his Padawan would be. He discovered Obi-Wan pacing in the cramped space they shared. He inquired bluntly, "Do you feel it, Master?" And Qui-Gon nodded. "I do. It appears to be right outside the ship. Whatever it is, I'm not sensing any ill intent. I will go and try to make contact. Stay aboard and help with the repairs. I shouldn't be long," he added. Obi-Wan was concerned. When he said, "Are you sure that's wise, Master?" Qui-Gon put a hand on his shoulder. He added, "Don't worry about me, my young Padawan. I will be fine," as he turned and headed toward the main exit ramp of the ship. He turned to stop a gleaming bronze humanoid droid that he had passed on his way there. He asked, reasonably certain that he was right, "You are a protocol droid, yes?" The droid instantly halted and turned to face the Jedi. In a monotone, artificial voice, it stated, "Of course, sir. I am programmed in over 7 million forms of communication. When he said, "Good, please come with me, I may require your services," the robot didn't even think twice. Qui-Gon turned the last corner to the exit ramp, confident that the droid would follow him. "At once, sir," he said. Whoever it was that he had sensed before, it was directly outside the ship. The course of events would decide whether they were viewed as friendly explorers or aggressive intruders. The venerable Jedi Master was unprepared for what he saw when Qui-Gon entered a brief series of numbers into the control panel next to him, causing the ramp to descend and allow in the refreshing night wind. The ramp was now fully dropped, and Qui-Gon was starting to descend and exit the spacecraft while his heavy cloak billowed around him, concealing his body. He would be lying if he claimed he had been ready to meet a small youngster with an ear-to-ear smile. Every breath burned inside Naruto's chest as he sprinted up the steps as quickly as his youthful legs would allow. He didn't care. What mattered was that he reached the top as quickly as possible. If it was something cool, the old man would probably already be there and wouldn't let Naruto to go close to it. He wasn't sure if anybody else had seen what he had, but he didn't want to take the chance. It appeared like he was lucky to reach the top of the stairs because there was no border guard to keep people out of the forest. Naruto ran into the trees and toward whatever it was he could still sense, not caring about his personal safety. After just a few dashes into the tree line, Naruto was confronted by a rush of unfamiliar odors. The air had taken on a coppery tang that made Naruto's eyes water and taste awful in his mouth, but he persisted nevertheless, anxious to see his discovery for himself. The surrounding woodland started to thin, and he knew from his early academy lectures that this meant he was approaching some sort of clearing. He quickened his pace, and soon the tree in front of him vanished into the distance. His impressionable mind was unable to fully process what he was seeing, and he skidded to a stop nearly immediately. What appeared to be a massive metal construction, easily larger than the Hokage building, had taken up nearly the whole area of the large clearing. It was longer than any building Naruto had ever seen, primarily red with white accents, and shaped like a cylinder with 3 separate bulges at one end. A part of Naruto's consciousness cried out that something was amiss despite the awe the image filled him with. He had come up here a lot to be by himself, and he was positive that he had never seen this construction before. He recognized the big black object that had been drifting across the sky the previous time. The fact that this metal structure had, in fact, been gliding across the night sky just minutes before was too much for his illiterate brain to process. Naruto was startled out of his reverie by a tremendous rumbling, and a tiny portion of the building started to descend in front of him, hitting the ground with the distinctive groan of metal on metal. Naruto had to cover his eyes with an arm for a while as light flooded out from inside. When he managed to peek up, he saw 2 different figures at the top of the ramp. As he saw them approach him, a broad smile appeared on his face. One of them was a man who appeared to be grinning down at Naruto while donning several layers of brown robes. The other was more difficult to identify, but Naruto figured that whomever they were was wearing some kind of armor based on the glint from their clothing and their odd limp-like movements. Despite knowing that he should definitely be afraid, Naruto didn't feel that way for some reason. The man who was just about to kneel in front of him exuded a soothing aura. At that moment, Naruto realized that this man was the same person he had been feeling while sitting at Ichiraku, the same feeling that had brought him here. Naruto paused to consider the man's look. He was undoubtedly middle-aged, with a short beard and a long head of light brown hair. Despite his robes, the man wasn't the type of monk Naruto had previously seen, not like the ones from the Fire Temple. He had high leather boots and a belt that was ornamented with a number of odd-looking devices that Naruto had no idea what they were used for. The cylindrical object that was positioned on the man's left hip caught Naruto's eye the most. It resembled a sword without a blade and had merely a handle made of black and polished metal. As he started talking, he glanced back up into the man's gentle face. He stated, "You have nothing to fear, young one. I come with only peace in mind," but Naruto was unable to comprehend him. He was aware that the man was speaking, but he had never heard any of the words. Naruto eyed the man oddly and responded, Sorry, mister, but I've got no idea what you're saying." He saw the man in armor perk up at his remarks and turned slightly to look at the robed man. As soon as they said, "Master Jedi, if my audio receptors are correct, this young life form is speaking a dialect of the ancient Otsutsuki language, propagated by the species of the same name. I am not certain, but I believe that it is expressing its difficulty understanding Galactic Basic." Naruto noticed that the man's voice sounded strange. The man clutched his chin in a hand, perhaps understanding what the man in metal had said. He answered, "Yes, I remember the language from my studies at the temple. I will not be requiring your services, C2s. Please return inside," which made the armored man waddle back up the ramp. The fact that the two men had been talking incoherently to each other the entire time was making Naruto more and more irritated. "I don't know about you, mister, but I've got no idea what you're saying," he insisted. The man continued, "I'm sorry, young one. I haven't spoken your language in a long time. My name is Qui-Gon Jinn. What may I call you?" And Naruto was finally able to hear him. "Not young one. I'm 5 now. I'm not a little kid anymore," he shouted angrily, crossing his arms and averting his eyes for a brief moment while pouting. Qui-Gon apparently appeased the boy by laughing at his theatrics. "You can call me Naruto Uzumaki," he exclaimed, looking up at Qui-Gon and rubbing the back of his head. "How'd you get your funny-looking house here? I thought I saw something in the sky, but houses can't fly," he remarked. The Jedi Master's eyebrows went up a little. He only inquired, "How did you know?" in the hopes that the youngster would comprehend. Naruto shrugged. "I don't know, I just felt it, I guess, like something calling out to me, if that makes any sense," he responded dismissively. That gave Qui-Gon the ultimate confirmation that this small child, Naruto Uzumaki, was force-sensitive. He attempted to clarify, "Not to worry, Naruto, I know what you mean. What you felt was the force calling out to you." But Naruto gave him a questioning look. Since Qui-Gon wasn't sure whether to be alarmed or intrigued by what Naruto had said, he responded honestly, "The force? What's that?" In any case, the youngster deserved an explanation. "Does that mean he is the only one? I didn't feel any other force presences anywhere else on the planet, but that shouldn't be possible." As he had previously explained to his Padawan, the force is what gives a Jedi their power. It is an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us. It penetrates us. It is what binds the galaxy together, he said. The word power appeared to make Naruto tense. Innocently, Naruto inquired, "What's a Jedi? And what's the galaxy?" Qui-Gon laughed quietly to himself once more. Uncertain whether Naruto was prepared for a lecture on the nature of the universe and astrophysics, he stated, "A Jedi is someone who studies and trains to use the Force as a means of protecting people and upholding peace in the galaxy." As for the galaxy itself, let's just say that it is a really big place. "That sounds awesome. I've never heard of you guys though. Where are you from?" replied Naruto. After briefly considering his alternatives, Qui-Gon concluded that there was no danger in telling the youngster what he thought the Force desired for both him and Naruto. The young child gave him a perplexed nod before pointing up into the night sky. "You'll need an open mind, Naruto," he continued. Hoping for the best, he clarified, "I come from far, far away, up there. That is the galaxy, Naruto. Each star that you see is a sun, and each sun could have its own world." After a prolonged period of silence during which his impressionable mind was undoubtedly trying to process what Qui-Gon had told him, Naruto suddenly realized. He staggered back, stumbling over his own feet and landing in the dirt to sit. He said, "Why, you're an alien," and pointed a finger accusingly at the Jedi Master. Qui-Gon laughed at his statement, which was essentially a legitimate one. Although Naruto appeared doubtful, he said, "Yes, Naruto, I suppose you could say that, though we aren't too dissimilar, you and I." As he got up, he asked, "What do you mean?" His explanation caused Naruto's eyes to expand. "I am a Jedi, and you, Naruto, you have the potential to be one as well," he said. He asked, "Really?" And Qui-Gon nodded. With a regretful tone, Qui-Gon explained, "Of course, the fact that you could sense my presence, even if it was faint, is impressive. There is no reason that I can see that would prevent you from training as a Jedi, though it would mean that you would have to leave your home though." Naruto's mood appeared to sag a little at that point. He paced back and forth, whispering to himself, "Ah, but being a Jedi sounds so cool, but it means that I couldn't be Hokage. That's not fair." But Qui-Gon couldn't hear a word of what the child was projecting. He finally exclaimed, "Arg, I don't know what to do," pausing and turning to face Qui-Gon once more. With assurance, he said, "We must go see old man Hokage. He will know what to do." Qui-Gon asked, "This Hokage, he is the village leader, I presume?" And Naruto cheerfully nodded. He answered, "You bet. He's the strongest in the whole village, and he pays for my apartment and food every month," which somewhat perplexed Qui-Gon. He questioned, "You live on your own? Why?" Naruto's joyful disposition appeared to vanish in an instant. He explained, well, I never had any parents and no one else wanted me, so I told the old man that I'd just live by myself, effectively suppressing and disguising his feelings, which the old master could readily detect. That isn't good. Without proper guidance he will be easy prey to the dark side of the Force, even if he has no concept of its existence, he believed. Naruto nodded in response to his question. Well then, this Hokage sounds like a very nice man. Would you please take me to see him? Naruto waved his hand over his shoulder and started to walk back the way he had come. Sure, he always likes learning new things. I think that's why people used to call him the professor. I'm sure he'd want to meet you, he remarked. Quickly catching up to the child, Qui-Gon walked alongside him as he was escorted to the Hokage mansion. When he spoke up, Naruto was guiding him down a series of quite dangerous stone steps down the Monument Mountain's face. What's this? He inquired nonchalantly, slightly perplexing Qui-Gon. He looked at the youngster and asked, Pardon? His eyes widened in shock at what he saw. With his fingers perilously near the activation stud and his eye looking down the emitter, Naruto was idly examining his lightsaber, wondering how he had managed to remove it from his belt. Qui-Gon's lightning-fast reflexes allowed him to pull the lethal equipment out of the boy's hands, and he groaned in appreciation. Naruto angrily remarked, You old people are always taking all the cool stuff from me. He clipped the blade back into his belt, making sure it was tight, and continued, I apologize, Naruto, but this isn't a toy. It is a very dangerous weapon. That just makes it sound even cooler, the boy remarked. What else is it? This just served to bolster the boy's confidence. It is a lightsaber, the weapon of a Jedi. When activated, the hilt will emit a deadly blade of energy capable of cutting through almost anything, he stated. Pulling at Qui-Gon's robes, Naruto said, Can I have one? Please. If you become a Jedi, then yes, you would be able to create your own, replied Qui-Gon. He chuckled gently as he heard Naruto say, Not fair, between pouted lips. The remainder of their trip was spent in silence. Naruto guided Qui-Gon through the busy streets to the biggest structure in the hamlet, which was big and red and resembled a dome with its top removed. The Jedi Master could not help but notice the icy looks that the people were giving Naruto, and Qui-Gon could only infer that this was Hokage Mansion. He could readily sense the waves of hate and rage being directed at Naruto, and based on the boy's response, it appeared that he could too. What struck him as strange, though, was that there was also fear, a horrible, primordial fear, in the midst of the rage. Why should these people be afraid of a youngster of that age? When Naruto dragged Qui-Gon inside the Hokage's building and up several flights of stairs before stopping him outside a large wooden door, he was jolted out of such gloomy thoughts. He questioned, Are you sure that we won't be disturbing the Hokage, Naruto? He didn't want to enrage the first leader he had encountered on this world. When Naruto explained, Nah, it'll be fine. The old man always seems happy whenever I turn up. He says it gives him an excuse to get away from all of his paperwork. Qui-Gon accepted the response but was still a little uneasy about the circumstances. Without waiting for an answer, Naruto loudly knocked on the door once, opened it, and walked confidently into the room. He said, Hey old man. You'll never guess what I've brought for ya. Naruto Qui-Gon looked into the room from behind. It was modestly adorned in every way, with bookcases along the walls and two small chairs in front of a large desk. The man Qui-Gon could only assume was the Hokage was seated in a high-backed chair on the other side of the desk. He was an ancient guy, much older than himself, wearing a plain white and crimson robe. He was sitting at a desk that was crammed with piles of documents, and he grinned as he gazed up at Naruto's entry. It flickered momentarily when he realized Naruto wasn't by himself. Qui-Gon's senses were suddenly overtaken by a sense of intense scrutiny. He had been around enough warriors to be aware of when someone was trying to measure him, carefully assessing the threat he might pose and devising a variety of plans to get rid of him if necessary. This old man's gaze only briefly lingered on Qui-Gon before turning back to Naruto, suggesting that he was not as innocent as he seemed. In a grandfatherly tone, he questioned, Naruto, my boy, to what do I owe the pleasure? As if it were the most straightforward of things, he exclaimed, I brought you an alien. For a minute, silence prevailed. The Hokage mumbled, what? When Naruto grinned and added, Yeah, he's got a spaceship and everything, Qui-Gon decided it was time to step in. As he entered the room, he stated, I apologize for my unexpected presence, Lord Hokage, but young Naruto speaks truly. The elderly Hokage was not one to discount anything without first learning the facts, even though it might have been the most bizarre thing he had heard in a long time. Naruto, thank you for this. Would you please excuse us for the time being? He said. Although Naruto was a little uncertain, he nodded slowly, assuming the Hokage had the greatest idea. As he turned to leave the room, he remarked, sure, I'll just go back to Ichiraku and finish my dinner. I'll be back, old man. He said. He's not as grumpy as he looks. I'll see you later, Mr. Qui-Gon, sir, before bolting down the hall and out the back door. Qui-Gon was told to sit when he looked back at the Hokage. He nodded gratefully and followed the instructions. The Hokage began, that is a bold and strange claim Naruto is making. Not knowing how to respond to the alleged alien seated in front of him. The Jedi Master said, Qui-Gon Jinn, and the Hokage nodded in appreciation. Hiruzen Sarutobi, now, I don't know how you would normally handle a situation like this, but I would ask you now to be blunt, Hiruzen stated, encouraging Qui-Gon to be direct. Why are you here? More importantly, why are you here with Naruto? Inquired he. Hiruzen concealed his amazement at the odd technology well after Qui-Gon reached into the folds of his robes and removed a holo display. He set it on the desk in front of him and turned it on, illuminating the gloomy office with a static blue image of his ship. This is the ship that I arrived in, a diplomatic vessel. We were on a mission to another planet, Naboo, when we sustained damage, he started to explain. Hiruzen cut him off. He continued, my Padawan and the ship's crew, I ordered them to remain aboard the ship to effect repairs, observing the Hokage's perplexed expression when his Padawan was brought up. I apologize, my Padawan is what you might call my apprentice. I am a Jedi. We act as peacekeepers for the galaxy. That is the broadest description I can give, he said. Qui-Gon was doing a good job of concealing any confusion or amazement the Hokage might have had. As I said, we sustained damage that forced us to land here so that we could repair the ship. At first I thought it merely an accident, but now I don't know what to think, he remarked while reflecting about Naruto. With an eyebrow raised, Hiruzen asked, what do you mean? Qui-Gon remarked, Naruto, I think he is the true reason why I'm here, and he saw the Hokage stiffen at the boy's name. The Hokage only said, explain. Naruto is force sensitive. He felt my presence as I in turn felt his. Tell me, have you ever noticed anything odd with Naruto? Any strange abilities he may have displayed? He asked. Hiruzen appeared to consider it briefly, reflecting on his recollections of Naruto. There have been a few incidents that come to mind, he said. With real concern, Qui-Gon inquired, incidents? Yes, Naruto has made claims that he can move things without touching them. I have only witnessed it once myself. He somehow levitated the chair on which he was sitting. I had first believed it to be an unknown bloodline trait, a rare ability passed down through clans. But after having him examined I found that he has no ability to use the specialized techniques of our people. You're saying this has something to do with him being, what was it you called it? Force sensitive, said Hiruzen, rising from his seat and turning his Jedi back to look out the window and down to the village below. Qui-Gon approached the topic of bringing Naruto with him cautiously. Yes, Naruto has the innate ability to tap into what we call the Force. It is a powerful form of energy that is emitted from all living things, and if he remains here, untrained, he could be in serious danger, Qui-Gon replied. He only hoped he would see reason since even without his enhanced Jedi senses, it would have been clear to him that the Hokage cared for the youngster. Hiruzen responded, you wish to take him with you, without asking a question. When Qui-Gon clarified, if it means saving him from himself, then yes, Hiruzen turned to face him, a little startled. What do you mean? Do his abilities pose a danger to him? Asked he. Not just to himself, but to all those around him. The Force is divided into the light side and the dark side. I'm sure someone as educated as yourself can understand the difference between the two. I've already felt it within him. I do not know why the people of your village treat Naruto the way they do, and frankly I'm afraid to ask, but Naruto is taking all of the hate, all of the anger they feel for him, and he is bottling it up inside. Unless he is trained to control his emotions and his abilities, he could very well become a force of great evil on this world, stated Qui-Gon. Hiruzen sighed wearily and shifted to take a seat once more. I have tried my best to shield him from the hate the villagers feel for him, but there is only so much I can do. It is not my place to influence what my people think. His parents died the day he was born. They died to seal within Naruto a primal beast, the nine-tailed fox. It is the closest thing to the physical embodiment of hate and rage you'll ever find, he said, his gaze focusing on Qui-Gon's. In a few short minutes, he seemed to have aged another decade. If what you say is true, Naruto is in more danger than I ever believed possible, he remarked. Qui-Gon nodded as he inquired softly, "You say you can help him?" In response to his statement that, yes, the Jedi Order is the best place for Naruto. We can teach him to control his emotions so that he won't be a danger to himself or others. Hiruzen bowed as if in gratitude. He inquired, "Will he be allowed to return?" Upon hearing Qui-Gon's explanation, Hiruzen chuckled quietly. After he has completed his initial training, yes, though only when he is not on assignment. A Jedi's life is a busy one. The galaxy is a large place. There are many people to help and protect. It sounds like something Naruto would enjoy. He has always taken it upon himself to help others, even if they don't necessarily want it, he said. For a few period, the two elderly fighters sat in friendly silence, neither of them feeling the need to talk. Hiruzen was the first to break the ice. He added, "I will not force this choice upon him. He only leaves with you if he asks to," and Qui-Gon nodded. "I also have a few conditions." Qui-Gon promised, "Of course, anything that is within my power will be done. Firstly, I ask that you tell no one of our existence. Our world is one of death and deceit. It would do your galaxy no good for us to be a part of it. And second, you will leave us with some form of communication, a way in which to contact Naruto and he us," said Hiruzen. Since long-range communication devices were reasonably priced and simple to use, Qui-Gon saw no issue with what had been required of him. After reaching Naboo, he would just need to delete the ship's navigational computer. Qui-Gon started to say, "Agreed, I'll have a," but was cut off when the door to the Hokage's office flew open, showing a panting Naruto. He hurried over to sat in the chair next to the Jedi and said, "Old man, I finished my ramen really quick so I could get back here. You done talking with Mr. Qui-Gon?" Hiruzen gave the youngster a kind grin. His words, "Yes Naruto, we just finished. I believe that Qui-Gon has something he would like to ask you," heightened Naruto's already ecstatic state. When Qui-Gon said, "Naruto, I would like to formally invite you to join the Jedi Order," Naruto appeared conflicted. He turned to face Hiruzen and said, "Being a Jedi sounds really cool and all, but doesn't that mean I wouldn't get to be Hokage?" "You are right Naruto, you'd be going away from this place and the position of Hokage would be lost to you. However, Qui-Gon Jinn and the Jedi Order are the only ones who can help you understand your powers and train you to use them," said the Hokage. Naruto was undoubtedly drawn to the prospect of mastering his unusual abilities, but Hiruzen could still tell that he was apprehensive. "Naruto, you have to ask yourself something. Should your personal ambitions of becoming Hokage be put before all the lives that you could change for the better by your choice to join the Jedi Order? You can go on to become so much greater Naruto. You're being given a great opportunity to help other Naruto, but we won't force you to do anything that you don't want to. The choice is yours," he said, his words inspiring Naruto's determination. "You're right old man. I'll be the best Jedi ever. Just you wait, I'll save the whole Galax." He began. "Galaxy," Qui-Gon murmured while chuckling softly. Hiruzen laughed at the boy's antics and said, "Yeah, that thing. I'll save it all," as Naruto got up from his chair and struck what he believed to be a heroic posture. He found himself saying a word he would never have imagined using. "I'm sure you will make me proud, Naruto. Now go and pack a small bag and meet Qui-Gon and myself back at his spaceship." Naruto responded, "Okay, I'll be really quick," as he was almost halfway out of the office. The two watched him go before Hiruzen interrupted. He got up and motioned for Qui-Gon to lead the way. "All right then, take me to this starship of yours. I find myself oddly curious," he remarked. Nearly 30 minutes had passed before Naruto, with a small rucksack slung over one shoulder, exploded into the clearing for the second time. He saw Hiruzen and Qui-Gon conversing at the base of the ship's embarkation ramp. The ancient Hokage was sitting next to a small, thick cylindrical object, and Naruto rushed to stand next to Hiruzen. He declared, "I'm all packed and ready to go." "Good, the crew are just finishing up repairs to the ship. We will be able to get on our way quicker than I thought," replied Qui-Gon. Hiruzen replied, "Then this is where we say goodbye for now Naruto," with a hint of melancholy in his voice. Naruto decided to take advantage of the opportunity to wrap his arms around the elderly man's waiting body and give him a hug. In an attempt to cheer Hiruzen up, he said, "Thank you old man, for everything. Don't worry, I'll be back someday, just you wait." It appeared to be effective. When Qui-Gon motioned for Naruto to start following him up the ramp, Naruto did so and then stole a couple glances around. He inquired innocently, "Where's that man in armor from before?" Qui-Gon was a little perplexed. "Armor? Oh, you must mean C2's. He's not a man but a droid," he said. Naruto questioned, "What's a droid?" Qui-Gon groaned quietly. He remarked, "Come Naruto, it seems there is much for me to teach you before we reach Naboo," as the ramp closed behind them. For the first time in years, a single, enormous eye opened. Its owner was big, much bigger than any creature should be, and an unsettling slitted pupil looked around languidly while an evil red blazed from within. A slim, nearly humanoid figure replaced an animalistic head with two huge, pointed ears. The creature's forearms ended in lethal five-fingered hands that rested beneath its snout. This ancient creature, clad in the same eye-catching orange fur that covered its entire body, had 9 tails, although most creatures only have one. After sleeping for 5 years, the 9-tailed fox eventually woke up and felt something that it hadn't felt in over 1,000 years. For the first time, he looked around his newest cage. Let's just say he was unimpressed. The fox immediately concluded that it was essential for him to learn as much as he could about his new host. The experience returned, amplified countless times over, as the 9 tails stretched its senses to try to see the outside world. The youngster, no, the whelp he had been imprisoned inside, was radiating a strength he had not felt since the days that its father had walked the earth, and the 9 tails recoiled as if struck by what it had found. His foolish host would undoubtedly be unable to comprehend the voices he heard speaking a language his old grandpa had once used. "Father, is this the one you mentioned?" Thinking back to some of his father's last remarks, he snorted in mockery in his mind. He thought, "We shall see," and then put his head back down, determined to go back to sleep since, despite 5 years of slumber, his vitality was still returning. Unbeknownst to him, the boy's brief waking had accelerated the development of some of his intrinsic powers. The fox's subconscious wisdom had crept into Naruto's head. The 9 tails soon fell asleep, his dreams dominated by thoughts of his father. Naruto gazed about in awe at the interior of the ship, which was unlike anything he had ever seen. Nearly every surface was immaculately white and polished, and there were colorful screens and blinking lights scattered around the walls. He was after Qui-Gon closely, relying on the guide to guide him through the strange area. As they went by in the hallway, he had gotten strange looks from what he could only presume were crew members. "Where are we going?" he said abruptly, and Qui-Gon grinned down at him. "We need to find you a personal translator. It is a small machine that will allow you to understand other languages. There is not enough time for you to study Galactic Standard before we reach Naboo," he stated. Naruto said inquisitively, "Naboo? Is that another planet?" And the Jedi Master nodded. "It is. The Trade Federation, an extremely large and wealthy group, has blockaded the planet. My Padawan and I are on a diplomatic mission to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the situation," he said. "Awesome," murmured Naruto, who was too preoccupied with the idea of traveling to a different world. "What's a Padawan?" he asked. A Padawan is a Jedi learner. The order identifies Force-sensitive children throughout the galaxy, and if their guardians accept the offer, they are brought to the Jedi Temple. They then train as younglings for a number of years until either a Jedi Knight or Master takes them as their Padawan. Effectively, my Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, is my apprentice. It is my duty to teach him all I know of the Force so that he in turn can teach others," stated Qui-Gon. Naruto questioned, "Does that mean I'm going to be your Padawan too?" He observed the dissatisfied expression creeping across Naruto's face and remarked, "Perhaps, in time. A Jedi is only permitted a single Padawan to train at a time." His words, "Though Obi-Wan is making great strides in his training, he is almost ready to become a Jedi Knight. Perhaps then I could teach you," lifted the young boy's spirits. A group of men in matching uniforms, identifying themselves as engineering staff, rounded the corner ahead of them. The leading man said, "Master Jedi," as he saw Qui-Gon coming. The Jedi stopped him by placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. He remarked, "I'll just be a moment, Naruto. Please wait for me," and then he moved forward to greet the men. Naruto moved uneasily on his feet as Qui-Gon started talking to the guys in a language he didn't understand. This was similar to when he had first met the man. He was unable to understand what they were saying. He was unaware that he had gone still, and it wasn't until his eyesight started to blur and black started to creep into the corners of his vision that he realized something was amiss. He was aware that he should be able to hear what others a few meters in front of him were saying, but despite his best efforts to listen, he was unable to hear anything. Something horrible, unlike anything he had ever experienced before, swelled inside of him. An unseen hand gripped his chest and squeezed hard, making it difficult for him to breathe. Moments before his skull started to heat up, he went to his knees, feeling as though someone had pushed a red-hot nail through his forehead. When he was finally able to move, he raised his hands to his head and held it in the delusion that the pain would go away. It didn't. His mouth opened in a wordless scream as the pain only became greater, but it wasn't quiet because he couldn't hear himself. Using his remaining vision, he watched Qui-Gon and the team of engineers turn and run in his direction, their faces displaying a startled expression. Qui-Gon said, "Naruto," but his plea was ignored. His headache changed from a burning white to sounds and sights that he didn't know where they came from. He saw an elderly guy surrounded by the shadows of huge creatures. He witnessed the world falling apart, with people killing and killing and killing, and it never stopped. He could sense the anguish, rage, and grief of 1,000 years of death compressed into one instant. His youthful mind was overloaded, and the only way he was able to remove the images from his memory was by sheer willpower. It stopped abruptly, like though someone had just flipped a switch, and he sensed it at that same time. He had previously experienced hate and wrath, but it had lost its edge and was just an all-pervading emotion that came from deep inside of him. He would not recall why, but in his final seconds of life, he felt a tiny glimmer of optimism buried deep inside the bad feelings. He smiled before he passed out in Qui-Gon's arms. His entire body ached, and he discovered that he could no longer do more than twitch a finger. His eyelids felt unbelievably heavy, and despite his protests, they would not move more than a fraction at a time. He considered himself fortunate that the ache in his head had subsided and that he could breathe again because he could tell by the soft, cushiony surface beneath his back that he was no longer in the hallway. From his left, he heard an unfamiliar voice ask, "Do we know what is wrong with the boy, Master?" What did the medical droids say? He mentally delighted when he realized he could hear again. At last, his eyes opened completely, and Naruto jerked his head to the side to try to see who was talking. One Naruto immediately recognized as Qui-Gon's voice stated, "Physically they say he is fine. His body is without injury. I cannot speak for his spiritual state. He was exuding waves of emotions, none of them good, though I don't believe the boy himself is the source." "What do you mean, Master? If not from the boy, where were they coming from?" "The Force," replied the other. With a solemn tone, Qui-Gon remarked, "Although the little one is exceptionally strong in the Force, nay, within the lad is." Naruto said, "I told you not to call me that," attempting to sound as unpleasant as possible considering the circumstances. There was no answer for a while. Naruto was a little perplexed when Qui-Gon hurried to his bedside and asked, "Naruto, can you hear me? Can you understand me?" He tried to sit up straight and croaked, "Well, yeah, why wouldn't I?" "Because I'm not speaking the language of your planet, and neither are you," replied Qui-Gon. As he started to fear, Naruto screamed, "Oh, oh." This was maybe the most bizarre realization he had ever experienced. He could still clearly understand what he was saying even if a part of his consciousness recognized that he was speaking a different language. He felt as though he had known this new language his entire life, but he could still recall his original tongue like the back of his hand. Qui-Gon remarked, "Calm yourself, Naruto. There is nothing to be worried about." Observing the boy's agitated state, Naruto turned to face the man as though he were insane. "I believe you are experiencing a very rare Force ability known as comprehend speech. It is an innate talent, one that can't be taught. Look at it this way, Naruto. You no longer have to learn an entire language," he replied with a grin. That caught Naruto's attention. If there was anything he detested more than studying, it was this. As he threw his legs over the side of the bed and got up on wobbly legs, he quietly exhaled. "Awesome." He asked, "How long was I out?" Qui-Gon answered, "No more than an hour," and Naruto let out a disappointed grunt. He lamented, "Damn it, I missed us taking off," and Qui-Gon gave a little laugh. He motioned for Naruto to follow him as he made his way to the door, saying, "Don't worry, come with me." When Naruto realized they weren't alone, he turned to face the other person in the room, a man somewhat younger than Qui-Gon, who was observing him with interest. His own lightsaber was fastened securely at his waist, and he wore the same robes as his master. His hair was short, and Naruto saw a tiny braid of beaded hair laying on his shoulder. He said, Hey, Naruto Uzumaki," and the young man grinned. He said, "Obi-Wan Kenobi, a pleasure to meet you, Naruto," and Naruto felt calmed by his gentle manner. Without saying another word, Naruto trailed Qui-Gon, with Obi-Wan trailing closely after. They passed through several intersections before coming to a single door. The door slid open when Qui-Gon tapped a button on a wall panel next to it. The Jedi Master entered, closely followed by Naruto. Qui-Gon declared, "This is the port observation deck," and Naruto understood why. The room itself was modest, with only a few chairs scattered along the walls, but Naruto's attention was captured by the room's most striking element. The room's whole wall was made entirely of transparent material, providing an uninterrupted view of the outside world. Naruto's eyes widened as he gazed into space, realizing that he was the only person on his planet to have ever witnessed such a sight. Gazing around in the darkness, Naruto was astounded by the sight of many stars and multicolored nebulas in the distance. Then he saw it, a perfectly proportioned globe of blue and green that was sitting peacefully in its own place in the Black Sea and slowly rotating in front of his eyes. With his tongue unable to form the correct words, Naruto began, "Is that?" Qui-Gon moved forward and put a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Naruto, that is your world. It doesn't have any official name in our records because it has never been discovered before. I think it only fair to allow you to be the one to name it," he replied with a grin on his expression. Naruto was at a loss for words. How about Shinobi?" "Nah, too obvious. What about Shinobi backwards?" "Ibanez." "No, sounds tacky." "I got it." He pondered. He asked, "How about Godai?" Unaware of any underlying meaning, Obi-Wan questioned, "Does that mean something?" "Yeah, from what Iruka-sensei said in the academy, the largest continent that we all lived on is called the Elemental Nations. They're cut up into 5 different areas, each with an element. Godai means the 5 elements," he clarified, hoping that he had been correct. Seeing Naruto's mood quickly, Qui-Gon stated, "Godai it is then. Now Naruto, I must apologize. We are on a very tight schedule. We are needed at Naboo as soon as possible. We have to leave now." Qui-Gon was more than pleased to comply with his begging request. "Yeah, I understand. Those other people need you more than I want to look at Godai. Can I at least stay here for a little while?" He said, "Of course, I'll have Obi-Wan stay with you. He can answer any questions you have about being a Jedi or the galaxy itself until we arrive at Naboo," before turning to leave the room. Above the door, a little red light blinked frantically before going out. A voice abruptly said, "All crew prepare to jump to light speed," shocking Naruto. "Don't worry, that's just the captain," Obi-Wan said, gesturing to the wall-mounted speaker system. "What's light speed?" inquired Naruto inquisitively. Obi-Wan appeared contemplative for a while, trying to figure out how to effectively explain the intricate workings of faster-than-light travel to a youngster from a low-tech society. Saying, "That's not easy to explain. Come, sit by the viewport with me." He pointed to a row of cozy-looking seats. "Watch," he said simply, gesturing into space, and Naruto searched for something he had never seen before in the depths of space. Suddenly, the stars started to move, and it took him a moment to realize that they weren't moving at all. They started to expand a split second later, with long stands of cosmic luminescence in place of single points of light. A blue haze engulfed the black space between them until the stars themselves vanished, leaving behind only a milky blue. Throughout the procedure, Naruto felt the floor lurch a little. He turned to face Obi-Wan, his eyes full with inquiries. He inquired, "How fast are we moving?" Obi-Wan grinned. "You catch on quick. Light speed is what is achieved when a ship activates its hyperdrive. It's a machine that moves the starship a great distance in a relatively short time," he said. It was understandable that Naruto was having trouble understanding what he was being told. Nobody expected a little child from a nation that had hardly invented the radio to grasp the intricate art of space travel in only a few minutes. "Don't worry, Naruto. You'll be taught all of this when you join the Jedi Order. I'm sure you have many other questions. I'll try my best to answer them. There is a lot you'll need to be caught up on," he replied. After a few moments of stillness, Naruto took a deep breath and turned to face Obi-Wan. He sat up on his seat cross-legged, his brow furrowed and his palm cupped his chin as his mind processed what he wanted to know. In a single breath, he spluttered, "When do I get to meet a real alien? I mean, you're an alien, but you don't look like one. Oh, can you teach me some awesome force techniques? Or can I have a look at your lightsaber? When do I get one? Do all Jedi have to wear those robes? What's a droid?" Obi-Wan seems uncertain about where to start and settled for a little sigh. "This journey will be lengthy." The bright lights of hyperspace abruptly vanished well into the third hour of their journey, returning to the black of regular space. Naruto had hardly shifted from his chair, interrogating Obi-Wan non-stop. The young man would not acknowledge it, but he enjoyed the change of pace. Previously, he was the one asking his master questions, but now, for the first time, he was the one acting as a mentor. Obi-Wan was certain that he would fear facing a Padawan student when the time came, but he wasn't so sure after seeing Naruto. The Padawan had fulfilled his role by providing the best response he could to all of Naruto's questions, and the little child was appreciative to say the least because he had learned a great deal in such a short period of time. Naruto had never been one to enjoy studying, regardless of how little he had ever been asked to do, but there was something about the prospect of poring over the galaxy's histories and the numerous battles that comprised its past that thrilled him. He was eager to see the Jedi archive that Obi-Wan had told him about. He was eager to learn about the incredible powers that the Force bestowed upon its practitioners. When the door opened and Qui-Gon emerged, Naruto was standing at the viewport. He was gazing at the quickly approaching world, which was blue-green like his own but had wildly disparate landmasses. Above the earth, he could see a number of drab gray things floating in space. As he pointed to the offensive items, he asked, "What are those?" Qui-Gon approached to stand next to him and observe what he was referring to. "Those are Trade Federation ships, the ones blockading Naboo," he said. "Why?" inquired Naruto plainly. "That is what Obi-Wan and I are here to find out. We hope that we can arrange a diplomatic solution to the situation and be on our way back to Coruscant before the day is over," replied Qui-Gon. Naruto was reminded of the term by Obi-Wan, who informed him that he would henceforth reside in Coruscant. Naruto said, "Can I come with you? I really want to see a real alien," but it was not to be. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but these negotiations can be rather difficult. The Trade Federation might take offense to us bringing a child into the negotiations. You'll have to wait aboard the ship until we return," clarified Qui-Gon, reducing Naruto's. He crossed his arms in mute protest and grumbled out, "Fine." Qui-Gon left the chamber with his Padawan in tow, saying, "Don't worry, Naruto, we won't be long. Now please stay aboard the ship and wait for us to return." Naruto remained motionless for a while, arguing with himself. He abruptly told himself, "Yeah, that's not going to happen," and reached for the rucksack he had brought. He dug through it as fast as he could and pulled out a dark gray hooded cloak, which he slung around himself. The cloak completely encased his body, leaving only his face and feet exposed. It was given by one of Old Man Hokage's ANBU, the man with the silver hair and dog-shaped mask. If there was one skill that Naruto had always been good at, it was stealth. In a matter of seconds, he was back in the ship's maze-like corridors, using just his senses to follow Qui-Gon's unique vibe. Naruto assumed they had landed on the Trade Federation ship when the ship suddenly rocked with a loud bang. Naruto started running after hearing the familiar sound of the ship's ramp rising after a few more rotations because he was anxious to get off the ship before it closed. As the ramp approached its closure, Naruto maintained his pace, sliding at the last second and just managing to get through the gap before the ramp closed with a mechanical clang. As he rounded the last corner, he saw just a thin strip of light. Naruto quietly commended himself for his accomplishments as he looked around his new environment. The Federation control ship's main hangar was now in a cavernous region. A few cream-colored skeletons wandered around in sporadic patrols. Despite the fact that they didn't like the ones Obi-Wan had shown him inside the ship, Naruto assumed they were droids because they all carried blasters. Naruto saw Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan standing in front of a big metal door across the hangar. He could only get half of the way between them before it opened, showing a gleaming silver protocol droid. Qui-Gon and his Padawan followed the droid through the doorway, still unaware that they had a follower, and Naruto thought it was talking to the two Jedi, but he was too far away to hear. After taking a quick look around and realizing that the armed droids were not watching, Naruto immediately fled his cover and headed for the entrance. The door closed just before he could reach it, and he soon realized he would not be quick enough. He swore softly and pounded his fist against the metal surface, saying, "Damn it." His gaze wandered, searching for a method to unlock it, until he noticed the control console off to the side. Naruto was unable to decipher the meaning of the numerous lights and buttons that covered it. He reached into his cloak and murmured, "Okay, the hard way then." When his hand reappeared with a little kunai in it, he stabbed the console forcefully without hesitation, shattering it to bits. The door miraculously opened, only half, but it was enough. Naruto slipped through and was left at a crossroads, unsure of which direction to continue. He was aware that picking a route at random would not work since the ship was too big. He tried to sense Qui-Gon's presence by slowing his breathing and closing his eyes, but it took a few moments until he felt a slight tug to his right. He grinned as he opened his eyes and started down the right path. After a few periods of racing, he had to hide, and the silver droid went by without observing his tiny body concealed against one of the columns protruding from the wall of the corridor. Naruto resumed his pursuit after a few minutes of waiting until he was certain the droid had vanished. He was certain that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were on the other side of a fortified door. When Naruto heard the sound of metal on metal approaching, he was going to use the same lock-picking technique he had previously employed. Realizing that there were no suitable hiding spots on the ground, he looked above. Long before the robot reappeared, this time carrying a tray filled with food and beverages, Naruto had plenty of room to sit and conceal thanks to the vaulted ceiling and the odd designs that were incorporated into the supports for aesthetic reasons. The door opened, and Naruto was on the verge of lowering himself to enter with it, but he decided to wait instead because he knew Qui-Gon would only be angry at him. It appeared that the Jedi could not detect him as long as he concentrated on hiding. He was aware that the best line of action would be to follow Qui-Gon back to the ship after he completed whatever conversations he was there to attend. After several minutes, with Qui-Gon still present and no one else entering the room, Naruto started to wonder what was happening. Where are the other guys if this is a negotiation ? He almost wish I hadn't asked, Naruto reflected. Naruto could readily detect that more than one machine was approaching him as the now familiar sound of droids moving on a metal surface pounded down the corridor towards him. A dozen battle droids appeared outside the door in a matter of seconds, pointing their blasters at it. They all had the identical appearance, with the exception of one that was bright yellow in color rather than the customary red accent. When he heard it, Naruto thought it was the squad leader. He was considering his next move when the ship was rocked by a huge explosion, and he instinctively realized that the little cruiser he had arrived on was gone, with all of its crew dead. Naruto noticed a peculiar snap hiss coming from within the room behind the nearly loud explosion. It took Naruto a time to realize that the blue, hazy shape in front of the robot commander was merely a projection of the person in charge of the droids and wasn't real. The best way he could describe the shape was Frogman, with slimy-looking skin, large, odd eyes, and long, bony fingers. He watched it for a moment, his eyes enlarging significantly as he realized it wasn't human. They were elegantly attired, sporting a towering headpiece and fine robes. The form vanished as quickly as it had emerged, and the combat droids all appeared to be preparing their weapons. They must be dead by now, destroy what's left of them, they stated in an unmistakably masculine voice. Naruto gave a low growl, determined not to allow that to occur. A brief but stressful minute passed in quiet before a form appeared. The droids appeared ready to fire until it was revealed to be the silver droid from before. The doors parted, and a thick gas emanated from within, making Naruto choke slightly at the obviously deadly stench. With a gasp of surprise, it immediately excused itself and limped down the hallway as fast as its motorized legs would allow. The yellow droid pointed its weapon at another. This voice was heavily synthesized. "Check it out, Corporal, we'll cover you," it said. The chosen droid said, "Roger, Roger," in a nearly identical voice, and proceeded to enter the room. Naruto heard the same snap hiss from earlier after a few wobbly steps. The hazy atmosphere was easily penetrated by two beams of light that emerged, one blue and the other dazzling green. Naruto heard one of the droids whisper, "Uh-oh." After a while, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan emerged, and Naruto saw that light beams were emanating from their lightsabers. The Jedi Master just needed to make one accurate swipe of his blade to cut the droid in front of him in half, his lightsaber piercing the heavy metal like paper. The other droids started shooting right away, sending tiny red energy darts from their blasters at the Jedi. Naruto stared in wonder as the lightsaber's blades deflected them beautifully, sending them back to destroy the fired droids. Naruto decided to use that as his moment of impact. He leapt forward from the ceiling and forcefully struck the closest droid's knee servos, causing it to fall backwards. After observing how they utilized the blaster, he grabbed it out of its icy grasp and swung it in the direction of its owner, delivering two rapid bolts to the droid's chest before it could even process what had happened. With both hands now gripping the blaster, he pivoted in position and squeezed the trigger 3 times, causing 3 battle droids to fall, their back plates exploding with bright sparks. He discovered that, despite being such a sophisticated weapon, it was incredibly easy to use. Naruto hurried over to the man and gazed up in wonder at the gleaming blade he carried after noticing that Qui-Gon and his Padawan had defeated the last of the droids as they fell. With the stolen blaster slung over his shoulder, he remarked, "Those things are even cooler than I thought. When can I get one?" Qui-Gon deactivated his blade and reattached it to his belt. Naruto, you certainly are full of surprises, though I'm afraid you'll have to wait until we get back to Coruscant, he replied. He said, how did you get off the ship? Naruto shrugged. When he casually stated, I just followed you I guess and hid when I had to, the Jedi Master knelt down and put a hand on his shoulder. He remarked, in any case, I'm happy. If you had followed my directions, we wouldn't be having this conversation, before getting up and surveying the area. Obi-Wan turned to his master and said, we need to hurry and get to the bridge before the Trade Federation representatives flee. He questioned, why would they do this, master? What would they have to gain by attacking Republic diplomats? Qui-Gon gave him a perplexed shake of his head. He looked at Naruto after saying, I don't know, but I intend to find out. Seeing as though you are here now, we may as well call this an exercise. Do you think you can keep up, Naruto? With a loud scoff, Naruto. Of course I can, he said triumphantly, placing his hands on his hips. Just point me in the right direction and I'll beat you to wherever it is you want to go, Qui-Gon said with a gentle smile. He said, I'm sure you could. Come then, the bridge isn't far, and then he started running down a hallway. Naruto used them for target practice, and only a few minutes after they started running, they turned a corner, with another sizable troop of battle droids standing watch outside a door in the distance. That's it, Naruto. Stay behind us and only attack when you are safe to do so, Qui-Gon replied, and Naruto nodded in agreement, seeing no use in arguing with the guy. The battle droids were easily defeated by the combined strength of two Jedi and Naruto's quickly improving blaster accuracy. Qui-Gon proceeded to the door they had been securing when the final one fell. Naruto pondered what he meant when he stated, watch my back, I'll find us a way in, until the man pushed his glowing green sword through the thick door, causing the metal to melt at the blade's touch and gently drip to the ground. Qui-Gon was starting to cut a big circle out of the door itself to construct a makeshift entrance, but the show just made Naruto want such a weapon more. The door itself rumbled for a while, so Qui-Gon stopped and listened. Naruto was sidetracked by another small group of droids racing down the passage towards them, so he quickly withdrew his blade before slashing the center of the door, this time to his weapon's hilt. While Naruto returned fire and dropped at least 3 of their number, Obi-Wan was redirecting their attacks back at them. The Padawan destroyed the final one, sending a blaster bolt flying back and slamming the droid's head clean off. After hearing an odd noise behind him, Naruto turned to find 2 strange objects made of dark red metal rolling in their direction. Based on Obi-Wan's rather alarmed expression, Naruto could tell that these new droids, whatever they were, weren't to be scoffed at. He yelled, Master, destroyers. The master stopped trying to enter the door and went to stand next to his pupil. He commanded, Naruto, get behind me, and the youngster quickly complied. As soon as the 2 droids ceased rolling, they started to unfold. Their heads were represented by the curve of their torso, and their eyes were 3 antennae that ended in glowing red lights. Their legs supported a ball-shaped body with 2 arms spread wide, each appendage ending in a dual blaster. Naruto stared with a tentative smile as a translucent blue bubble around them as they fully expanded themselves. It was a losing struggle despite Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's best efforts to block the fresh blaster fire. Naruto saw that the blue bubble was a shield of some kind, and any strikes that the Jedi redirected back at them only slipped off the energy field. Qui-Gon said, it's a standoff, as he lowered an arm behind him in Naruto's direction. Despite not fully understanding the idea, Naruto obeyed when he said, get on my back, Naruto, and hold on tight, we need to leave. He leapt onto the man's back, grudgingly dropping his just-obtained weapon and gently wrapping his arms around his neck, clinging to him for dear life. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's tremendous burst of speed as they raced down the hallway and out of sight caught him off guard. They took the first bend they could find and eased off. Qui-Gon surveyed their new surroundings before pointing to a metal grating near the ceiling. He reached for his lightsaber and exclaimed, there, the ventilation system. It will make moving around much easier, but Naruto intervened to stop him. He joyfully said, I'll get it, and turned to face the Jedi before extending his hand toward the ventilation grate. His eyes were closed and his face was twisted in concentration as he stared at the grate. The 2 Jedi watched, imagining what he intended it to do, as the grate started to tremble a little before pulling out of the wall completely and falling to the ground with a loud clang. Naruto opened his eyes, marveled at his creation, and silently congratulated himself. Qui-Gon applauded Naruto, saying, well done, Naruto. Sarutobi told me that you had shown great aptitude in telekinesis. Naruto blushed at the compliment. Thanks, Most people back home just thought I was some kind of freak whenever they saw me do something like that, he said sadly. Obi-Wan seemed a little concerned by that. It caused Naruto's mood to completely change. You don't have to worry about anything like that among the Jedi. I don't know anyone among the Order that would think less of you because of something out of your control, he replied kindly. His expression lit up as he responded. Thanks, Obi-Wan. Qui-Gon said, I'll be going in first. Naruto, you follow behind me. Obi-Wan will bring up the rear, receiving nods from both Naruto and his Padawan. Taking their answer, he sprang to his feet, grabbed the ventilation shaft's lip, and dragged himself inside. Taking advantage of his diminutive size, Naruto opted for a far more flashy approach, taking a few steps back before sprinting, leaping up, tucking himself into a roll, and almost plunging down the shaft. They started to follow the Jedi Master's instructions through the ventilation system after Obi-Wan joined them. Naruto started to worry that they could be lost after a little while, but he decided to keep his thoughts to himself. His patience paid off when Qui-Gon made a last turn and they reached a sizable hole in the shaft. It opened onto another spacious hangar bay area, which Naruto found to be congested compared to the previous one. Big, H-shaped ships dominated the far wall, and enormous brown cars were parked in a straight line along the entire length of the space. Hundreds of battle droids were in formation in front of the vehicles. With Obi-Wan right behind him, Qui-Gon silently signaled for Naruto to approach before firmly grasping the youngster and lowering him a few meters to the chilly floor below. With the two Jedi observing the martial exhibition in front of them, the gang moved quietly to squat behind a wall of crates. Battle droids? Qui-Gon asked. Obi-Wan clarified, it's an invasion army, pointing to the strangely shaped floating ots. This is a strange play for the Trade Federation. They aren't usually this brave. We need to contact and warn the Naboo and Chancellor Valorum. Let's split up. We can stow aboard separate ships and meet up down on the planet. Naruto, you'll come with me, explained Qui-Gon. It appeared that everyone concurred with the strategy. Obi-Wan said, you were right after all, Master, drawing a questioning glance from Qui-Gon. He smiled as he explained, the negotiations were short. To put it mildly, the small storage space where Naruto and Qui-Gon were forced to hide was uncomfortable. If it hadn't resulted in their getting shot several times, Naruto would have grumbled. He couldn't remember how long they had been hidden, but he was relieved when the ship finally came to a stop. Qui-Gon gently tapped his shoulder to get his attention. He continued, we have to move now, before the droids activate. Follow me, as he silently opened the door and started running, Naruto trailing the Jedi by only a few feet. Before too many of the droids activated, they were able to escape the landing area. Naruto crouched behind a downed tree at the edge of the clearing and observed the big brown trucks disembarking and forming up. He was waiting for them to turn away as they approached the forest line, but they didn't. He stated the obvious, they aren't stopping. The two of them turned and hurried deeper into the forest as the transport tanks crashed through the tree line. No, it appears not. It seems we will have to continue running, Qui-Gon said. Soon after, a swarm of animals joined them, disrupting their morning routines. Panicked by the mechanical intrusion, they fled from the approaching cars, sometimes passing Naruto and Qui-Gon too closely for comfort. Naruto spotted something ahead of them as one of the bigger creatures dashed past. At first, he assumed it was just another member of the local fauna, but he was mistaken when he saw that whatever it was standing erect and had clothing on. The Jedi Master had to wrestle them to the ground after the creature yelled at their assailants, wagging its arms amusingly and refusing to move aside in spite of Qui-Gon's pleas. He yelled, Naruto, down, loud enough to be heard over the tanks, and Naruto obeyed by lying down on the damp earth and letting the cars go by. It took a minute for them to stand up again, and Qui-Gon left the location right away and started to leave. Naruto glanced at the creature, noting its peculiar physiology. With scales in place of skin, stubby feet with only 3 clawed toes, 2 lengthy fleshy flaps that billowed from the rear of the head, what were likely gigantic ears, and eyes that were hanging from the head on short stalks. It was clearly reptilian. It stood beside them, clumsily whirling around to survey its surroundings. Naruto shrugged a little and decided to follow Qui-Gon. From behind him, a voice that sounded more than a bit obnoxious asked, "What's that?" The voice said, "Hey, wait," once more, as if it was determined to follow them. As the two approached a tiny clearing with a stream through the middle, it caught up with them. As it attempted to embrace Qui-Gon, it was pushed away. "Oh moi moi, I love you," it said. Qui-Gon exclaimed, You nearly killed us. Are you stupid? The monster appeared unimpressed by the slight. It boldly said, I spec, and Qui-Gon nearly burst out laughing. His words, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Now get out of here, it'll be safer for you that way, caused the creature to seem scared. The creature that had been given a name said, No, no. Misa stay. Misa called Jar Jar Binks. Mesa your humble servant, and Qui-Gon sighed gently without even turning to face Jar Jar. He curtly clarified, that won't be necessary, clearly anxious to be rid of the local. As Jar Jar exclaimed, Oh but it is. 'Tis demanded by da gods it is. Naruto arched a small eyebrow. Your gods want you to be Master Qui-Gon's servant. Why? He said, and Jar Jar, who had just now seen him, glanced down at him. He be Savin, Misa life, da gods be demandin', I repay him, he said. Naruto remarked, makes sense I guess, pausing when he heard something swiftly approaching. He yelled, Qui-Gon, something's coming. And the Jedi Master instantly went on the defensive, launching his lightsaber into his hands. 2 combat droids on STAP jet bikes were following Obi-Wan as he ran into the clearing from the far side. The lead droid saw Qui-Gon and fired the first shot, but fortunately the Jedi Master redirected the blast back at it, causing the STAP to explode in a dazzling shower of flame. Attempting to run Qui-Gon down, the second approached, but it was unsuccessful as he cleaved his lightsaber through the air, splitting the STAP in two and sending its pilot plummeting to the earth in a ditch. Jar Jar remarked, You saved my again, as he got back up after collapsing in terror. Obi-Wan appeared somewhat perplexed by the predicament Naruto and Qui-Gon had found themselves in. And what's this? He asked, pointing at Jar Jar. His master let out a frustrated groan. A local, he said plainly, and Naruto interrupted to make a small correction. He and Obi-Wan laughed along as he stated, and Qui-Gon's new servant. As Qui-Gon left the clearing and returned to the surrounding woodland, he stated, In any case, we need to leave before more droids arrive. We're too exposed out here in the open. Jar Jar's eyes widened in terror as he asked, More did you speak? Naruto laughed a little before trailing Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Naruto, rather perplexed by the present plan, wondered, What are we supposed to do now? After Qui-Gon said, First we need to find somewhere safe, then we can figure out a way to get to the capital. Naruto heard Jar Jar's heavy footsteps approaching quickly from behind them. It appeared he had decided to follow them after all. Excuse me, but the moistest safest place would be Gunga City, is where I grew up. 'Tis a hidden city, he gleefully remarked in his blatantly unpleasant voice. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan paused to look at one another, clearly considering their choices. A city? Full of people like you? Naruto inquired warily, fearing the response. Jar Jar appeared to be unable to decipher his hidden meaning, grinning broadly down at him. He responded, Aha, and Naruto looked up at Qui-Gon with a quiet groan. He said, You want to go there, don't you? The Jedi Master gave him a small smile. His eyes were fixed on Jar Jar. It seems we have no other choice, he said. Can you take us there? In an instant, Jar Jar shifted from being eager to assist to nearly being afraid. Oh, on second thought no, not really. No, he answered, defensively flailing his arms. Qui-Gon appeared doubtful. No. Jar Jar appeared uncertain about how to begin, a sensation Naruto was certain he experienced frequently. 'Tis embarrassing, but my afraid m've been banished, my forgotten, da bosses would do terrible things to me, terrible things if me be going back there, he said. Can't imagine why, Naruto murmured mockingly under his breath, and judging by the smile on his lips, it appeared Obi-Wan heard him. When Naruto heard the rumbling, he leapt to his feet, holding a kunai. The rumbling came from all directions, and Naruto could picture the big brown cars destroying everything in their path as they searched for them. Qui-Gon sullenly told himself, We need to get moving, taking advantage of Jar Jar's anxiety. Do you hear that? He questioned. Jar Jar looked puzzled and raised one of his big ears with his palm to listen. His eyes brightened. It was obvious that he had heard it at last. He merely replied, Yaha, as Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan moved slowly toward the Gungan, making him take a small step back in terror. As Qui-Gon remarked in a threatening tone, That my friend is the sound of 1,000 terrible things heading this way, looking for us, Obi-Wan stepped up to assume command. Even Naruto found their new plan easy to understand. If they do manage to find us, the bosses will be the last of your worries. We will be crushed, ground into dust, and blasted into oblivion. There will be no escape, he stated. Jar Jar scratched his chin for a moment, weighing his alternatives. His fearful side overcame his logical reasoning. Jar Jar started to walk, but none of them knew where he was bringing them. Yasa Point is well seen. This way, follow me, he yelled, abruptly rotating in place so that Obi-Wan had to duck or be struck by his big ears. The forest quickly gave way to marsh terrain, exposing Naruto's toes to their first interplanetary mud bath as the mud began to stick to their shoes. He may have liked it if he hadn't found the greenish ooze more than a bit repulsive. He rushed forward to Qui-Gon's side. I thought we were supposed to go to the capital, he inquired. I'm hoping that Jar Jar's people have some form of transport, hopefully allowing us to reach Theed much faster, stated Qui-Gon. Curious, Naruto questioned, what are we supposed to do once we get there? With Naruto giddy with anticipation, Qui-Gon declared, we must save the Queen before the Trade Federation tries to coerce her into signing a treaty that will authorize their invasion. He exhaled quietly, we get to save a queen. Awesome, which made Qui-Gon laugh. After he remarked, you'll soon learn, Naruto, that life of a Jedi isn't quite as exciting as it may seem, though it does have its moments. Naruto fell silent for a brief period. What will happen to me once we get to Coruscant, to the rest of the Jedi? He inquired. I will be honest with you, Naruto, I don't really know. Usually younglings are inducted into the order at a younger age, but I feel certain that you will be accepted. After that stage they group into clans and all train together under the temple's instructors until they are chosen as the Padawan leader by a Jedi Knight or Master, stated Qui-Gon. He triumphantly pumped his arm, saying, so all I have to do is impress someone really quickly so I don't have to train with all of the little kids. I can do that. The elderly master grinned at the lad's antics. Who knows, I may even be your master. I believe Obi-Wan to be ready for his trial, though it is up for the council to decide. You have certainly impressed me, Naruto. You have more innate talent with the Force than any Jedi your age I have ever met. Telekinesis is not an easy skill to learn and you already have a very good grasp on it. Tell me, Naruto, is there anything else you have experienced? Anything that you couldn't explain? Asked Qui-Gon with a genuine interest. Initially ecstatic by the accolades showered upon him, Naruto turned away in shock, something Qui-Gon could see clearly. Naruto, what is it? He inquired, wondering what had upset the youngster so abruptly. Well, there was this one time. I was going to play in the park when I saw a bunch of kids picking on this girl. She didn't have any friends. She said it was because she had a big forehead. It wasn't that big, he laughed. I got really mad at them. I remembered what it felt like not to have any friends, and I ran over to help. I'd never been so angry before. Dog, one of old man Hokage's A and BU had been helping me with my taijutsu training, so I knew how to block and counter. When I tried to stop them from picking on the girl, the older boy tried to punch me, so I did what Dog showed me to do. I blocked his punch by catching it, he said. Obi-Wan, who was only now joining the discussion, remarked, you caught his punch. Why? It was a legitimate question because everything he had been taught about unarmed combat indicated that it wasn't the best course of action. Yeah, Dog said I was strong for my age and that I should use it. When I caught his fist it was weird. I don't really know how to explain it. It was like I could see how to hurt him, how to win. Without thinking I just focused on that. It felt almost natural. Next thing I knew he was on the ground, crying in pain. The Hokage told me that I had shattered every bone in his right arm. In more than 3 dozen different spots. I refused to touch anyone for a whole month, he said with a wry grin on his face. Qui-Gon's awe at the boy's abilities only seemed to increase. He questioned, has anything like that ever happened since then? Naruto glanced up at him, the dejected expression abruptly leaving his face. No. After a while I tried to do it again, with rocks and sticks, but it just didn't feel the same, he said. Not to worry, Naruto. An old friend of mine at the temple can help you control the ability. It is called Shatterpoint. It allows a Jedi to see the weaknesses in something or someone, and use the Force to exploit them, explained Qui-Gon, calming Naruto's nerves. Naruto had always been terrified of his abilities, but he felt fortunate to have them now that he knew he would soon be able to learn how to control them. The Gungan turned to look at the group after Jar Jar led them to the shore of a big lake. Well, this looks like a dead end, Naruto murmured to himself. Jar Jar asked, we have to be going underwater now, Akide. Naruto watched as the 2 Jedi nodded their heads as though it were commonplace. Naruto then held up his hand. He answered somewhat angrily, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I can't breathe underwater. To which Qui-Gon chuckled gently and took two odd-looking, two-pronged devices out of a pack pocket on his belt. Neither can I, this should help, he answered, passing Naruto one of the gadgets. He flipped it over in his fingers to try to identify what it was. It will allow you to breathe when we go under, said Qui-Gon. Just keep it tightly in your mouth and don't try to breathe through your nose, he continued. Jar Jar continued, my warning you, Gungans no like outsiders, so don't expect a warm welcome, as he approached the water's edge. Obi-Wan chuckled, saying, believe me, we haven't experienced many warm welcomes today. He performed a feat of amazing acrobatics in which Jar Jar leapt into the air while uttering an odd shriek. His body twisted and spun until he plunged into the black water and vanished below. Naruto followed Jar Jar and put the rebreather in his mouth as Qui-Gon had instructed. He immediately regretted his actions when his feet touched the water because it was extremely cold by his standards, but he reasoned that it was likely related to the fact that he had spent his entire childhood in warm surroundings back in Konoha. He persisted because he saw no other option, and soon he was just exposing his head while treading water. Naruto heard faint splashing behind him and turned to see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon after him. Jar Jar's head abruptly broke the water just as Naruto was starting to wonder where the Gungan had vanished. Jar Jar asked, Yasa follow me no, Hokage. Naruto gave a small nod. With his teeth chattering and the rebreather in his mouth, he answered, yeah, sure thing, the water chilling him to the bone. Jar Jar vanished beneath the water again, and Naruto automatically inhaled deeply before following. Because the water was dark, it was difficult to discern Jar Jar's hazy outline as he passed through it. Soon after, Qui-Gon showed up next to him, providing him with a useful point of reference. Naruto had to acknowledge that breathing underwater, even with a tiny machine, was an odd experience. As Jar Jar led them to the lake's bottom, they passed a variety of aquatic animals that Naruto had never seen before. Naruto saw a dim light ahead of them, but he was positive it was there. The lake bed abruptly disappeared, and Naruto would have been astounded by what he saw if circumstances had been different. The source of the light Naruto had seen was exposed. The actual lake bed was covered with hundreds of glowing, bubble-shaped structures that were all joined by metal tethers. The closer the structures were to the arrangement's center, the larger they became. Jar Jar led them down toward one of the smaller buildings that served as gateways that were directly related to the single, enormous bubble that served as the center of the entire city. A tiny platform with lichen and barnacles on its surface protruded from the bubble. They all shifted to line up with the platform, stumbling along it. Naruto observed that the bubbleless membrane functioned as a kind of doorway and that it adhered to his body as he passed through it. He also observed that the procedure eliminated the majority of the water that was soaking his body. They were surrounded by Gungans of all sizes, some of whom were staring at them out of interest and others out of terror. Naruto observed that, oddly, many of the latter were staring at Jar Jar rather than the strangers who were now among them. Aha, it's so good being home, Jar Jar remarked as they made their way to the center of the building. Naruto turned to face Qui-Gon, who shrugged and chose to follow their instructions. The other Gungans flinched away from them. When Naruto heard something growling, probably at them, he became alert. He started to reach into his cloak, but Qui-Gon grabbed his arm. No, we must let this play out diplomatically, the guy murmured to him. Naruto, while being upset with the choice, obliged, taking his hand off the Jedi Master and standing calmly next to him. A Gungan's rider, a giant two-legged lizard, dashed to stop them and brandished a long metal spike. Two more riders joined him shortly after, encircling the group. The first rider yelled, "Hey Yasa," and pointed his spear's extremely sharp tip at Jar Jar. "Stop it there," Jar Jar exclaimed as he glanced up at the rider, a familiar expression on his face that quickly vanished and was replaced by one of fear. It was obvious that Jar Jar was starting to realize he was not welcome. He joyfully exclaimed, "Oh hey Odales, Captain Tarples, Misa back," in an attempt to ease the tension that pervaded the air. The rider, who was now known as Captain Tarples, shook his head. He sagged his shoulders and let out a melancholy sigh as he muttered, "No Jar Jar, Yasa shoulda not have been coming back. Yasa going to da bosses, Yasa in big doo-doo this time," interspersing his words with little thrusts of his spear. Jar Jar started in surprise as one of the other riders stepped forward and lightly stabbed his spear towards his arm, but the spear never touched, instead sending a blinding flash of electricity flying from its tip. "Well, that wasn't very nice," Naruto mumbled. Although he didn't want to see Jar Jar injured, he did find him a little annoying. Captain Tarples glanced at Jar Jar's companions, examining them briefly. They all obeyed and allowed themselves to be brought into Gunga City. "Yasa be comin' too, da bosses don't like an outsiders," he remarked, backing his horse up a little and pointing with his spear. They went by numerous interested bystanders who were obviously unaccustomed to seeing someone of a different species than themselves. After leading them through a lengthy series of bubble structures that grew smaller as they proceeded, Captain Tarples finally stopped them outside the entrance to a comparatively tiny bubble. Tarples said, "Yasa be waitin' here," getting down his horse and entering. Qui-Gon had been silent the entire way there, and Naruto was starting to question if they still had a working plan, so he questioned, "What are we supposed to do now?" "One way or another we must get to the Naboo. Hopefully we can secure transport of some kind from these bosses," Qui-Gon stated. Naruto was doubtful, and if their current reception was any indication, it seemed unlikely that they would be granted transportation. He said, "And if they don't want to do that?" Qui-Gon gave a quiet sigh. He continued, "Then I will have to convince them otherwise," and Naruto wasn't sure if he liked the way he said it. Any more discussion of the subject was cut short when Captain Tarples returned. "Yasa be going inside now, da bosses be ready for Yasa," he continued, making a sharp motion with his arm to indicate the direction he had come from. The first to move was Qui-Gon, who gave the captain a short salute as he strolled by him. Naruto trailed him closely, feeling uneasy in such an unfamiliar setting. This building was quite modest in comparison to the others they had visited. A raised platform encircled the entire space, and Naruto noticed several Gungans seated on padded chairs, all of them donning odd robes that obscured most of their features. A huge Gungan sat in the middle, his physique easily dwarfing any Naruto had seen before. He wore the same robes as the others, but his head was adorned with a kind of crown, making it easy for Naruto to recognize him as the Gungan leader. Unexpectedly, Qui-Gon and his Padawan came forward, and Naruto followed. All of a sudden, the Gungan elders were watching them, and the Jedi Master appeared satisfied to wait before making his point. With a peculiar clicking sound echoing in his big throat, the Gungan commander waved a flabby arm dismissively, looking down at the three of them with thinly veiled scorn. He yelled, "Use cannot be's here," and Naruto had to work to understand him because his speech style was just as perplexing as the other Gungans he had heard. He punctuated his statement with a flabby finger pointing at the Gungan chiefs. "This army of mechaniques up there is Yasa problem we saw," he remarked. Qui-Gon appeared to take the remarks in stride and not seem to be bothered at all. He attempted to turn the conversation in their favor by saying, "The Naboo must be warned, a droid army is about to attack," to which the Gungan responded with a loud shout and laughter. He said, "We sa no likened on Naboo," and made the odd clicking noise once more. They didn't want to help save them because of something so trivial. "Dos Naboo tink they so smarty, they tink their brains so big," he continued, with Naruto's fist clenched hard and a quiet growl coming from his lips. Qui-Gon's hand found Naruto's shoulder and he knelt down to speak with him as his Padawan continued negotiating in his place. Naruto was blind to Obi-Wan's and Qui-Gon's visible flinching, and the waves of rage that were pouring out of him were easy for skilled Jedi to pick up. As he murmured in the small boy's ear, "Be calm, Naruto, let go of your anger," Naruto shook his head in defiance. In an attempt to make a point, Naruto stated, "But they're going to let everyone die just because they don't like them. As Jedi, it is not our place to change the views of those around, but to show them the possibility of changing themselves. The Force works in mysterious ways, Naruto. I promise you that we will do everything we can to protect the Naboo and the Gungans, even if they don't believe they need it. That is our job. That is your job now," stated Qui-Gon. The Jedi Master started to make more sense as Naruto listened, but he turned away in shame since Qui-Gon was correct and it wasn't his place to tell others what to think. Qui-Gon grinned when he felt the rage that Naruto had been expressing go away. The older man got up and repositioned himself next to Obi-Wan. Seeing that they were no closer to getting the assistance they needed, Qui-Gon concluded that more convincing actions were needed. Naruto saw the man wave his hand softly in front of himself, which was an odd gesture, but he could sense something from it that he couldn't identify. "Then speed us on our way," Qui-Gon murmured. The boss's expression briefly changed to one of bewilderment at Qui-Gon's gesture, but it vanished as soon as it appeared. "We sa gonna speed yous away," he continued, sounding almost like he was reading off a piece of paper. Qui-Gon waved his hand again, and Naruto realized that he was somehow influencing the Gungan leader's thoughts with the Force. We could use a transport, Qui-Gon remarked with a faint smile. The boss stated, "We should give Yasa una bongo, the speediest way to Naboo. 'Tis going through the planet core," with a tone that was more than sufficient to convey to Naruto that he did not want to go to the planet core. He waved him away after saying, "Now, go," with finality. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan both bowed rapidly, and Naruto momentarily mimicked them awkwardly. As they approached the exit, Jar Jar tried to reach out and seize Qui-Gon's robes but was yanked back violently by two guards. "Thank you for your assistance. We shall leave in peace," Qui-Gon remarked, guiding them swiftly towards the exit. He said, "Days setting, Yasa up, going through Dock Core. Bad bombing," and then he smiled awkwardly while pointing to his bindings. He added, "Any help here would be hot," and Qui-Gon paused to think for a second. Obi-Wan questioned, "We are short on time, Master, are you sure?" "We can't just leave him here," Naruto replied. "He's come this far, and without him, we wouldn't have Bongo, whatever that is." Qui-Gon gave a small nod. He remarked, "Naruto is right, we might need a navigator," before turning to return to the boss. "After we depart, what will happen to Jar Jar Binks?" He inquired, and the boss laughed before responding. He added, "Hasten to be punished," and his smile at the sulky Jar Jar was enough to convince Naruto. He rushed up to stand next to Qui-Gon. "Hold on. Isn't it true that Jar Jar has the life thingy with us since Master Qui-Gon and I saved his life?" He don't remember exactly what Jar Jar had called it, he added. The boss appeared enraged for a second before Qui-Gon waved his hand again. "Your gods demand that his life belong to us now," he responded. "Have you performed live with Thyssen Hyson, Binks?" The boss inquired, and Jar Jar nodded angrily. He shook his neck vigorously back and forth, his fat cheeks smacking together in a blubbering, nasty sound. "Get rid of him!" He yelled, flinging his arms in all directions. Qui-Gon dragged Naruto along with him, anxious to get away quickly. One of the soldiers on either side of Jar Jar let off his restraints, letting the Gungan trail them out of the boss room. With the joyful grin remaining on his face, Jar Jar pulled himself up off the ground and brushed himself off after Naruto had to swerve to escape getting glumped by the joyful Gungan. When he heard the young man's low giggle, Naruto groaned deeply and glared at Obi-Wan. "Yasa be saving Misa again, little one. Misa gotta be being Yasa humble servant for sure," he murmured. In an attempt to have Jar Jar better understand him, he said, "Please, don't, and my name isn't little one, it's Naruto," speaking slowly. Jar Jar remarked, "That's a funny name," and Naruto about lost it. "Isn't that a humorous name?" He tried to ignore Obi-Wan's snickering as he said, "Your name is Jar Jar Binks, for crying out loud. Now that's a funny name." Undoubtedly, it appeared that the journey would be lengthy.